of mine in our department at USI. He is from Salem, Indiana, and he is going to talk about the Rotary Rotary Global Grant Scholarship that he received, excuse me, to study in Spain and talk about his journey of Rotary and how Rotary has changed his life, etc. So thank you, Cameron.
Hey.
So I have some like PowerPoints and notes on my phone. So if you see me looking at my phone, I'm not texting my friends. I promise. I'm just keeping up with the presentation. So thanks for the introduction. Thank you very much for having me. I'm really happy to talk to you guys. I just talked to my Salem club a couple days ago, so just covering a lot of the same stuff. So the first thing I want to talk about is kind of like my early experiences with Rotary, because this isn't the first time I've been involved with the organization. So the very first time I got involved with Rotary was back in 2015. We had a local Rotary four-way speech contest, and we had to write a short speech about how we embody the four-way test. I was 15 at the time, and the grand prize was $100. And when you're 15, it sounds like a lot of money. So you're like, hey. So I thought, why not? So I decided to do it. And I actually ended up coming in first place in Salem, so I was really proud of myself for that. But there was only like 6 or 7 of us, so it wasn't super competitive. But then I went on to the district level. I didn't place there, but that was kind of the very first time I thought about the four-way test and what Rotary was as an organization. And so after the speech contest, I got into something called the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards, which is like RYLA. That's what they call it for short. It's a workshop retreat for younger people to, learn. Sorry, my phone keeps like going off. I don't need it anyway. I'll just do it from memory. So it's just essentially a workshop for younger people to gain leadership skills and to connect with other young people from around the world. And I remember that was the very first time I was exposed to people from outside of the country, and even in some cases from the other parts of the country, like out west and things like that. So it kind of started having me think like, what else is out there in the world that I was never exposed to before? I met friends from India, Indonesia, Brazil, and I asked them, I was like, how did you guys end up in Southern Indiana? You come from these countries all the way around. And they're like, oh, we came through the Rotary Youth Exchange Program, which I didn't know about at the time. And they were like, have you ever thought about going to another country? And I was like, yeah, maybe I thought about it before. And they said, you should apply for the program. So I applied for the program. I got in, and they sent me to Mexico when I was 17 at the time. So in 2016, I spent a year studying abroad in Mexico in high school. And that was definitely probably a very transformative, defining moment that made me who I am today. I got really close with my host family and my friends there. I became fluent in conversational Spanish. And I say conversational because that's a lot different than professional Spanish, which I've been emailing people from my university, and it's not the same thing at all. And I probably sound like some kid off the street, but I'm trying my best, you know what I mean? So that kind of helps me establish the appreciation that I have today for the Spanish language, the Spanish culture. So when I came to USI, that was what influenced me to want to study Spanish, essentially, and to keep practicing it. But one thing about Mexico that really stood out to me was I remember when my host family picked me up from the airport and they were driving me back home, we drove past some strawberry fields. And there were these little structures that kind of looked like forts, that kids would build out in the fields. And I remember asking my host sister who spoke English, I was like, what are those? She goes, those are houses. The workers who work in the fields, they live in those, and their kids live in those too. And I was like, wow, it was just very shocking for me because, growing up in Salem, you have lower income areas of the town, but I'd never been exposed to something as harsh as that extreme level of poverty before. And in my head, it was just something, that didn't really exist, but that was the very first time I saw it. And I thought, why does the government let that happen? Why are these people suffering so much, and why is no one doing anything about it? Because they don't have access to water, they don't have access to education, they make little to no money at all, and it's a really sad thing. So it really started getting me thinking about humanitarian issues as well. So coming back from Mexico in 2017 when I started at USI, I really wanted to focus on politics, international politics, and think about, what are organizations around the world doing to assist with these humanitarian crises. So I started studying at USI in 2017. I was there for 4 years. I focused a lot of my studies on international politics, international relations. I was a student of Dr. Henkes, as he mentioned. And I graduated just recently in May with my degree in political science and Spanish studies. And while I was at USI, I decided to get involved in organizations there. So a friend and I started the Thirst Project at USI, which is a smaller chapter of the national organization that works to bring access to clean drinking water in areas around the world that don't have access to it. And it was kind of my first experience, leading a service project per se. I definitely learned a lot. I think in my 2 or 3 years that I served as vice president, we raised $2,000 or $3,000, which helped provide like 30 to 40 wells of sustainable wells for clean drinking water in areas of the world that don't have it. And I think it helps kind of grow my appreciation for service projects and for doing things that don't directly benefit yourself. I was also involved with the International Club, which is an organization that tries to connect American cultures with cultures from around the world. So that was definitely really cool, and I made friends from all over the world, from Spain, Mexico, Germany, and that was really amazing. So after that, after USI, I kind of thought, what am I going to do now? I don't really know what to do. But one of the really defined moments that I had was when I did an internship with the Department of State, I believe it was my second semester junior year, right before COVID happened, actually. So I got into an internship at the U.S. Embassy in Madrid. I was there for a semester, and it was crazy just to see, how the government operates on the ground level, and how much of a responsibility you have and the government has to take care of American citizens around the world. Because just because you leave the country doesn't mean you forfeit your citizenship. So you still have rights and protections that the U.S. government has to respect. And so working at the embassy, I was placed in the consular section, which essentially handles any emergency situation that you face abroad. So if you go to Germany and you lose your passport and you have no way to get home, you could come to the embassy and we could help you to issue an emergency passport. We also handled issues like if you gave birth while abroad, if you got married while abroad, and there were a few tragic incidences of people. Got what?
Got arrested?
Yeah, actually, yeah. Believe it or not, people leave the country and they think, hey, there's no laws here, so I can just do whatever I want. That's not the case. And they just, there were a few people, and it was mostly young people my age, doing dumb stuff. But yeah, it happens a lot more than you would think. And then there were even like a few tragic cases of people passing away while abroad. So it was just on the ground bureaucratic government at work and working with citizens, trying to help them establish everything in another country. So that was really interesting for me to see. Also, I was there during COVID-19, so I saw how the government directly responded to the pandemic, and Madrid was one of the cities that was really hard hit by the pandemic. So we had a lot of American citizens who were infected with COVID. A few did pass away, and just to see, what the embassy has to do to coordinate getting them in contact with the United States, their families, making sure they have money to get back home if they need to. So I ended up leaving early because I was a student intern, so that was not considered like an essential worker. Came back here.
When did you come back?
What?
When did you come back?
I came back in, I believe it was March of 2020. So I was there.
So you got to see some of the COVID.
Oh yeah, I saw a lot of it.
Saw a lot more probably than.
Yeah.
Okay, because that was when kind of things shut down. But yeah, it's
I
probably
remember.
worse than where, but it.
I remember we were discussing it at work, and for us it was still just like something somewhere else in the world. Like, oh, did you hear about that COVID-19? And then within a week or two, the entire Spanish government shut down the schools, shut down all the businesses, and we were like, whoa. And then within like 2 or 3 days, I saw the response that the embassy had to that, and I was going back home a week later. And then it ends up like an hour after I left Spain, they had closed the borders entirely so that no one could leave, regardless of citizenship. And I finally got home, got to Chicago. My mom picked me up. I sat through a 7-hour CDC health screening line at the Chicago airport. Thousands of people completely backed up. Yeah, so my plane landed at like 3 p.m. I didn't get out until like 11 p.m. And my mom was sitting in that parking lot waiting for me to get out the whole time. And I was like, man, if I didn't have COVID coming in, I definitely have it now. So all these people around and breathing on it. But yeah, so after I got home, I came back to USI. I had 1 more year. And I just graduated. So then I started thinking, what should I do after? I don't really know. And then I started looking into master's programs because I knew I wanted to go back to Spain because I feel like I didn't get the full experience. I was only there for a month. I was supposed to be there for a longer period of time. So I applied for the University of Salamanca's master's program in global and international studies. And essentially the program just teaches students, you know, the ins and outs of international conflict, how governments respond to conflict, and not just governments, but non-governmental organizations as well. So a lot of the instructors are former foreign ministers in the European Union and in Latin America. The program is taught all in English, but a lot of the professors come from different countries. They speak different languages. They have experience working with the United Nations, working with NATO for regional and global security issues. So I'm really excited to be able to go and get firsthand experience and knowledge from them, from their own experiences. And that program is going to start in September. And so I got selected for the Rotary Global Grant Scholarship, which essentially gives me $40,000 for any essential expenses that I need, whether it's housing, transportation, and that's for up to 2 years. So as soon as I leave in September, I will be acting as essentially a Rotary representative from this district 6580 to district 2201, which is in Salamanca. So I've been in contact with a few of the people from the Rotary Club there. The thing about Spanish people is they have a notoriously very lax culture. So I haven't heard back from a lot of them, but I'm sure they'll get to it in a couple weeks. I might hear back from them, maybe I won't. They might see me at the airport, but
everything's manana.
Yeah, yeah. And I wish Jim was here because we have some funny stories about trying to, because they had to sign off on the endorsement to essentially say I can come here. And it was difficult to light a fire under him to get him to do it. But
so does the scholarship cover the tuition, or do you have that?
No, it covers the tuition.
Tuition, okay.
It essentially,
that's what I thought.
Yeah, it'll cover any essential expenses. So it can even,
$40,000 per year?
No, $40,000 for 2 years. So it's divided into like $20,000 for 1 year and then $20,000 for the next. Yeah.
So can you get by on that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been working. I've always been employed. You know, crappy service jobs, saving money, putting money away. So I have a lot of my own personal funds that I'll be using for smaller things. But the cost of living in Spain is a lot lower than it is here, unless you're in Madrid. I mean, Madrid, but it's a big city, so it's a lot higher. But like I've already got my apartment lined out, and it's only like $350 a month for rent, and that's considered one of the more high-end, expensive apartments. And that covers, you know, like my water, electricity, stuff like that. And it's even like has a cleaning service where they come in every week and clean the apartment for you.
Wow. Is it a one-bedroom apartment?
No. So the way that they do it a lot in Spain, Salamanca is a very university city. They have that big university. So the majority of the people there are students. So what they do is these landlords will buy big apartments that have like 5 or 6 bedrooms, and they'll rent out each bedroom individually. So you get a big bedroom, you know, I have like a queen size bed, a wardrobe, you know, some nice things. And I'm just renting that bedroom. And then we share like our kitchen, we share our bathroom and things like that. So I think the apartment I'm staying in has like 6 bedrooms. He told me that they're never full all at the same time. So I might have like 2 roommates or 3 roommates, or maybe it'll just be me, you know, who knows. So yeah, so I'm still in the process of getting my visa to go to Spain. I think in June I'll head up to Chicago to give my application. I have to do it in person. Feels like a waste to drive 5 hours just to hand paperwork and turn around and go back home, but that's how they do it. So hopefully I won't have any issues with that. As soon as I get my visa, I'll get my ticket and I'll be leaving in September. So I'm, you know, really excited, not just to start my program, but also to see like how Rotary is different in Spain, because I know when I was in Mexico, I worked a lot with the Rotary Club, and the culture was different. The projects they did were different, but at its core, it still had this idea of like service above self and like people helping each other and either doing small projects or big projects to, you know, help other people. And I think that's really interesting. And I really want to see what they do in Salamanca, and I would love to, you know, help them and get involved in whatever projects that they're working on. So yeah, that's essentially what the whole scholarship entails. I'm really excited. I'm very grateful for all the opportunities that Rotary has given me, because I think I can say that I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for the opportunities that Rotary gave me. So, you know, I am very grateful for the scholarship, and I know that as the recipient, there's a lot of expectations for me, and I'm really excited to be able to fulfill those expectations, because I feel like it's just a way that I can give back to an organization that's given me so much. So yeah. And then after my program, you know, people ask me, what's your plan after? I have no idea. I'm still thinking about that. You know, I really think at this point, I can see myself trying to work with the Department of State, maybe as a foreign service officer, or maybe as just a civil servant. I'm not really sure yet. But yeah, so I'm thinking about that. maybe this program will expose me to other people, other things, other organizations that I would like to work for, but who knows, we'll see. And at the end of the 2 years, you get to participate in something called the Global Internship Program. So essentially they line you up with an internship with any organization that you find interesting. They can be local, national, and in some cases even like international organizations like the United Nations. They can help you get internships to kind of get your foot in the door to working in the world of like global affairs.
Is that a Rotary program?
No, that's for the university specifically,
Okay.
my master's program. So I'll have 3 semesters of classes, and then my final semester is just my internship, and then writing my thesis and things like that. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And if you guys have any questions or anything, I'd be glad to answer them. And thank you for letting me come and kind of explain what my plans are and what I'd like to do. So thank you.
Where did you live in Mexico?
I was in Celaya, Guanajuato. So Guanajuato was the state, and then Celaya was the city.
What is that relation to Mexico City?
I believe the funny thing is geographically Mexico City is very close, but in terms of traffic to get there, it's like 8-hour drive, even though it's only like a 2 or 3 hour distance. But it's a little bit south of Mexico City.
Okay.
So it's more in like that curvy part down at the bottom. That's the best way I could explain that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I was there for a year, and it was an amazing experience, definitely.
So your Mexican Spanish doesn't translate well to Spain?
No, absolutely not.
You're kidding. Is it altogether different?
It's not different. I would compare it to us trying to talk to someone from Scotland, and hearing that very distinct. And sometimes you're like, what the heck are they saying? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So the Spanish are very notorious for speaking extremely fast, for slurring all their words together into one giant statement, and their vocabulary is just different altogether. So I know in Mexico there's a word that is a very explicit word that you'd never use. And in Spain, apparently it's a normal word that everyone uses, and it's very socially acceptable. So when I remember when I heard someone at work say that, I was shocked beyond belief because I was like, whoa. But apparently it's normal there. So there's a lot of, language barriers and stuff like that I'll have to get accustomed to.
Northern and southern United States,
Yeah.
there's
lines.
lines in there.
When you were in Mexico, how safe did you feel?
I was also young and naive at that time. I didn't realize a lot of issues. My family I got really close with them. They were really good about keeping me safe. The part of the city that I lived in was relatively safe. One thing I was really, shocked about was the level of security that each house has. They have big fences, they have alarm systems. There's like 5 or 6 locks on the door, and that's because as a region it is very, unsafe at times. And it's really sad because recently my city has gotten out of hand in terms of crime. And so my host family, who I used to go back and visit frequently, have told me, don't come back just yet because things are, not necessarily safe right now. So I'm hoping that will change, but who knows, With Mexico, the thing is, with the drug cartel and all of the corruption that brings in the government, it's just very difficult for them to have a stable community,
Unfortunately, you'll find that's the norm in Central America too.
Yeah.
The fear of crime is really terrible. I was in Costa Rica several years ago for a week on a mission trip. I was talking to one of the residents there. I was commenting on all the security because I was a police officer.
Yeah.
And they take it to the point where they have burglar bars that come out to the street. They pull their car in and close the gate behind them.
Yeah.
And the guy said, yeah, we're prisoners within our own homes.
Yeah. See, and that was one of the things that I really thought about whenever I was in Mexico, because I saw some of the communities that people lived in, and honestly, it wasn't surprising to me that there was so much crime. Some of these people literally have nothing, absolutely nothing. They have no home. And so if they have to steal food or if they have to steal money, it's I'm not surprised that that's happening because they're literally dying of poverty. And so that's why I think, Mexico needs to put a lot of its efforts into solving those crimes and to trying to expand access to education, especially because children in poor families, they don't go to school. They have to work with their families to make money because they're so poor that they can't even afford to put food on their table. When those kids should be able to go to school and to get an education to find an actual job or career that they can excel in. So there's a lot of issues. I mean, Mexico, it's like government, political, economic, it's all just a lot, and it's going to take a lot of time and energy to fix some of those solutions.
How different is the government in Spain as compared to Mexico?
Well, not as much corruption because they're part of the EU, so there's a lot more standards in terms of governmental corruption. And I would say, it's very similar. So Mexico, I would say their political system is very similar to the US with a lot more corruption. In terms of they're more capitalist based, there's not as many social programs. And then I would say Europe is what you would expect from a European country. There's a lot more social programs and it's more socially democratic or whatever. So I guess those are the differences that I mostly see. The interesting thing about Spain, though, is their government has really done like a 360 since the fall of the dictatorship in 1975. So back then, there was no democracy at all. It was just an authoritarian figure, and they all did what he said. And then they've really flipped since that. So they've become extremely democratic recently. Yeah. But yeah. So yeah.
Very good.
Well, I think I'm going to get a drink of water because my mouth is really dry. Thanks.
Very good, yeah. That's interesting.
It'll be interesting. Are you on Facebook?
I am, yeah.